a lot of people have talked to me about how their parents would say, like, don't do music. There's not a job in it. And it was the exact opposite in my family. It was like, the only thing you're good at is music. So just like, do music.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast. My name is Cassius Morris. Joe Pacheco joining me on the line. What's happening, Joe?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We're getting close to the holidays, which means lots of food and time to sleep.
Lots of good times indeed. We definitely hope everybody in the SoundMojo family is coming into the holidays on a good foot. Today's guest on the show is going to be Andrea von Kampen. So we're very excited for this episode, not only talking about the brand new EP entitled A Chance Encounter, but also the brand new film project. This was a unique episode because we actually got to speak with someone, Joe, who was working on both sides of the entertainment business in this angle, which was really cool.
Yeah, very cool, and she's also like, now she's like an actress, but she had a good time doing it, and I think she said she'd do it again, right, if I remember correctly. And yeah, sweet voice. She's got just a nice, beautiful, sweet little voice, I find, it's like as soon as I press play, I feel nice and warm and comfortable.
It's perfect for the holiday season, so we'll get all into that very soon. As you can see here, guys, the Pantera reunion has officially began. This is footage that you guys are seeing from the Heaven and Hell Fest in Mexico. This went down on December 2nd, 2022. And a visual that I'm not sure a lot of people expected to see in 2022.
Yeah, I know. It seems quick, right? Like we were talking about this in July when it was announced, and then now they're already a tour set up. And like just a few weeks ago, we are talking about Zach didn't know the songs, right? Or he was still learning the songs. Not that he didn't
still learning the songs off YouTube, he said, which was interesting. Yeah. But from the sounds of it, he's learned them.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like I listened to the song before, and it's like I skipped right away to the solo because I am Dimebag in his solo and stuff, and yeah, pretty much like you're expecting. I'm used to hearing Dimebag's way of doing it, but it's Zach's way of doing it, but it's just as good, and he's down. He's got a down pat.
How would you say that the reception has been sort of based on scrolling through social media, like personally for you? Because for me, I've been seeing a lot of people happy, but also a lot of people like with mixed reactions. So I can't quite gauge how people feel about this yet.
I'm a bit on the both in the sense that like when hearing and talking about it, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And then as soon as I pressed play, I was at first like, it took me a little bit, okay. But now that I popped it in my earphones, and my earphones, and I'm like, wow, this sounds really good. Yeah. So I'm sure if I was there, I'd be super excited. And like, but from here, it's like, yeah, it looks cool, man. It looks good. They sound great. I mean, no, I don't think I'd have a hesitation in going.
I wouldn't hesitate either, and this is good news, I think, for the Metallica tour as well, which of course we're going to see them on, coming up this next year. I think it's encouraging to see. And the way I'm looking at it is if you don't like it, don't go to it. But for the people who do want it, for the people maybe even in my generation who were born, a year before or after Dimebag was unfortunately shot, we never had the chance. And I think it's a lot easier to say if you saw Pantera in their prime that this shouldn't be happening than it would be for someone maybe who hadn't seen them.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with you. Like I got to see them twice or 2 or 3 times, and yeah, you didn't get the chance to see them, right? So like, why not? Get a different version of it. You'll never get the chance to see Dimebag, unless there's some like cool cryogenic stuff and they bring them back to life.
Maybe a hologram. Now that could be cool though. Like, would you say that? Let's say they adapted that to a hologram Dime to come up and play with Zach. Would that be too far, or would that be cool?
I would like it. Personally.
I think that'd be awesome. I mean, look, I think a whole tour like we saw with Ronnie James Dio is completely sort of over the top. But I think like a 1-song appearance similar to Tupac at Coachella, that could be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. That totally could be cool. Or for like an iconic kind of part or solo. I'd love to see it. And it's definitely doable because you could play with a click track and everything will be perfectly in sync, And Dime was like a fantastic live player. So
he was a human click track. Those brothers were like a human click track.
Yeah. I mean, I saw him and I never forget just the experience. And I, at the time I was thinking like these guys are probably so wasted on Jack Daniels right now. And they just sounded incredible. It's like, almost like they have to be wasted or drunk to a certain level to play like they play, right? You know, to get that feel.
Anyways, did they have a breathalyzer test where like they had to make sure you were drunk enough? I heard or something like that.
I don't know about that. I just know that like at the time there would be like a lot of the Typo Negative was often in Montreal as an opener, and like they were an opener for Pantera, and like I could spy like from where I was, it looked like Vinnie Paul was mixing drinks backstage during the first set, you know what I mean? And they were passing them around, you know? So yeah, but I mean, like, man, I never forgot that show and the impression that Dimebag left on me in terms of like just the control of his guitar and how like they can control the audience, you know, the place went nuts, you know? So I kind of missed that. I wish we can do that, but I mean, we can't. So this would be definitely the next best thing. I don't think I've ever gotten to see Zach live. So this would be the first time I'd get to see Zach as well.
Now, it appears that Pantera is going to be on the road for a number of years here. We have, it looks like a 2-year tour planned with 15 songs roughly in the set. And this is a career-spanning set from Pantera. So this is really cool to see. We also have more reactions pouring in as well from different people in the music business. More notably, Paul Stanley of KISS.
Yeah, this is surprising. This is surprising. Yeah. Honestly, like I didn't know, you know, I'm sure these guys have probably toured together or played together or crossed each other's paths, but I didn't know like that sounds to me like he's a fan or was a fan.
It does sound like that. And for people who don't know, Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell were actually both buried in KISS caskets, and Vinnie had KISS members at his funeral. So, you know, definitely, you know, Paul wasn't necessarily there or in the mix, but definitely KISS and Pantera close when it comes to ties, like Joe's saying. So maybe not the first two names you'd expect together, but still the truth. You know, I would agree with what Paul is saying. He says, thrilled to see Phil Rex and Pantera back and killing it. Zach and Charlie clearly did their homework with love and commitment. Pantera did shows with us years ago, and we were ferocious and explosive. Others tried, but nobody could be them. Dime and Vinny would be proud. That is the quote from Paul Stanley.
100%. That's like pretty much what I said before. Like no one can be them, you know, like, and I think, you know, I've always said this, like I came out of the whole early, like the late 80s and all those bands. And when grunge came in, Pantera had already established themselves in the, you know, with Vulgar Display and stuff. But like, I mean, I honestly, my opinion is they carried metal throughout the 90s in terms of like, brutality, just like how it should be, or like, you know, and when people were sort of like, guitar solos are lame and this and that. I don't know. For me, Pantera, for me personally, it was Pantera and Dream Theater that just carried like prog rock and metal for me throughout the 90s. You know, Alice in Chains too. There was like definitely like guys as well, but yeah, Pantera definitely, man. Like no one can really do this, you know. So that's why I think a lot of people were hesitant, because it's like all four members are key in Pantera, right? You can't just replace someone like, so it's like Vinnie Paul is just an iconic drummer, you know, and so that's why I think people were a bit shocked that like, you know, this was in the works kind of thing. But, you know, I'm pretty sure, you know, some of those guys will be happy to hear what's going down live.
Let us know in the comments, guys, if you intend on going to see this, if you'd like to see it. And we're definitely curious to see what you guys think. Now it's that part of the show where we hop into the SoundMojo community tab and take a look at some of you guys' music suggestions. Of course, we look at all of these comments, we do our homework, and we check into all of the songs and come back on this segment and react live on the show. And there's no shortage of suggestions again for this week of the segment.
Yeah, this one's got a couple of doozies, different ones that we haven't gotten before, and there's some new ones that have been... people have commented, so apologies. Like we do this just before we record, so if we didn't see it, you know, keep trying next time. So what do you want to start with?
Let's roll with number one, which is coming from our guy Anton Witlavsky. Yeah. I'm not saying that right.
Witlavsky. Yeah,
there we go.
And apparently so this was. The J is silent, you know? So like it actually says it right here. Wituslavski is Polish and Kjelsen is Danish. So it's probably Kelsen.
Okay, I'm learning something new every day.
We'll get it.
This was a song by Thomas Helmig called Stupid Man. And this was a cool track. You know, this kind of gave me that folk rock, Tom Petty type of vibe, like that driving through like a a prairie field, like on a road trip, kind of no concern with like maybe a piece of straw in my mouth. It gave you that sort of laid back rock kind of vibe, man. And it was cool. Like it was unique while also giving me characteristics of things that I've heard before.
Yeah, that's it. That's great imagination you have there. But yeah, and like for me, it was like everything was good. Song was good. I enjoyed it, but it's not something I would like seek out. You know, it does sound like the production was dated. Dated, not saying that it sounds dated. It was probably early 90s, late 80s kind of song. I thought the video was cool. It was a tongue-in-cheek kind of video, right? Stupid man fall in love with a stupid man. It was cool. So thank you for that suggestion, Anton. We'll go with number 2 here, I believe, is Nightclub, suggested by Ken Ulozis.
Yes, this was one of the coolest ones for me. Yeah, I really liked the whole concept of this video. I found the mix was super, super clean, and like really there was nothing about it that I think lacked in quality, from the production of the song to the visuals to the story sort of elements that you follow along with. I'm a fan. You know, I really think it was cool, and it was something that I possibly would have sucked out more. You know, I potentially will. What do you think, Joe?
I mean, I'm assuming like this is for me. I've never heard of this. Nightclub.
I believe they're a duo called Nightclub. So I haven't heard of them either, but it seems like the female is like the main component, obviously. But it's cool. Like, I think it seems like duos are almost rising in popularity. Is it just me?
Nope. We've been talking about it with different people. We've had duos like the Standstills and on the show, right? And I've seen them as well, like with 1970. Was it Death from Above, right? 1979.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a duo. It was like a blurry face, or something. What was his name? Those guys, 21 Pilots, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, so definitely.
Black duo. Keys, you know.
Yeah, you know,
we could go all day.
Kicking ass. Yeah. So when I first popped the song, I love the visuals because like I'm just an animated fanatic. I love this kind of videos. And right away, I wrote sounds like heavy disco, right? Which is the name is like what is their name? Nightclub, right? So it sounds like a heavy disco. I don't know if I can't think of the song now, but it's a Madonna song from the 2000s that sounded like this. It reminded me so much of this, like the way the synths and the bass was going. I
wish I knew it.
Obviously, in a club, this would be like amazing, right? Because it's like just gets you that vibe, you know. Yeah, and to answer, you know, like they are here considered a dark electro goth duo. And
electro goth.
Yeah, and they're based out of Los Angeles, California.
Interesting.
So, thank you, Ken, for that one. That was really good.
It kind of reminds me of the music you would hear at like the club in Bad Boys. You know what I mean? Like some weird underground club.
Well, that's it, right? Like, or The Matrix, right? There, like, there's a movie, you know, like there's like an industrial kind of club, very dark and shady. Let's move on. We have not Donald Fagan, who suggested Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior. A jazz fusion classic. Yeah, the whole album. I checked out the first. Well, I know this one. I've been listening to this probably for the last 20, 30 years, on and off. Had you heard of this one before?
I had not heard of it before, but I got to tell you guys, this gave me vibes of Frank Zappa. I got to just come out and say it. The second I heard it, it reminded me of that Zappa experimental stuff, that early Steve Vai, interesting mixtures of instruments. And like, I don't know, I was expecting almost like a medieval thing, you know, just based on the sort of aesthetic of it. Like I thought it would be like some actual sort of warrior music, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, basically jazz fusion. These like everybody on this album, and this album included, is legendary. You know, it's like it's like the Led Zeppelin 2 or Led Zeppelin 1 of like jazz fusion. You know, like I've listened to it a couple of times. It's not my favorite jazz fusion album, but a lot of these musicians on here are definitely my favorites. You know, Al Di Meola being the guitar player, which you've probably heard of. I'm not sure if you've heard of Al Di Meola.
I don't think so, honestly, but I probably heard his music, honestly, you know, somewhere.
I'm a big fan of Al Di Meola. I've been lucky enough to meet him when he came to Montreal for the Jazz Fest when he got an award a couple of years back. But like as a guitar player, I got into Al Di Meola and those albums from the 70s and the early 80s. And like, they all have, and the fact that you said Frank Zappa, it totally makes sense because it all came around the same era. And Frank Zappa, while he's not jazz fusion, he's definitely a fusion of everything, you know? And like, so there's a lot of like similarities in this stuff. Chick Corea, another legend who passed away, I think maybe last year, I believe. And I got to see 2 or 3 times perform live. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because it wasn't even a band. It was just Chick Corea and a piano here in Montreal. Place des Arts, huge place for classical music normally. And it was just him and a piano. And that audience, myself included, was entertained like incredibly. And at one point, he starts to play with just his left hand, and has a little drum kit next to him and starts to play the beat with the drum kit. And then he gets the audience to sing certain parts. He'll be like, okay, you guys do la, you guys do la.
It's an all-encompassing show.
Yeah, and then he gets you to go on the right parts, la, la, everybody together. It's like, it was really cool. It was so much fun to be a part of. And I'll always remember that. But yeah, definitely this album is like, anybody who likes jazz fusion, you definitely have to listen to this album for sure. So thanks for not Donald Fagen for suggesting that one.
Oh, Fagen.
This one's interesting. I'm curious to see your thoughts on this. Game X Simmons, he suggested the Rembrandts, End of the Beginning.
Yes, this was good. You know what? This kind of gave me that typical. What was that band that Eddie Vedder was in that wasn't Pearl Jam? What was that other, the Temple of the Dog or something?
Temple of the Dog. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it gave me those kinds of vibes, like that typical sort of cool '90s rock.
Did you know these guys were from the '90s?
Honestly, I knew just from the sound. I didn't know it for a fact, but I couldn't have assumed anything else just from listening to it. Because like the second I heard it, I was like '90s. Like it was just instant for me.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. Did you know that did you check out the Rembrandts, who they are?
I don't know who they are. No, I only checked out the song.
But it's a crazy success story and a bit sad at the same time, because I don't know any of their stuff, but I know, and everybody knows, the Friends theme song. They're the ones who wrote the theme song.
Really?
For Friends. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So they had like some success to their name.
That song blew up, obviously, because the show blew up, and it's a great song. And so they had to re-record it and re-release it very quickly because of the success of the show, or they had to do a single version. And
right.
Like it happens a lot when something just takes off and you can't control it like that. All your other stuff gets overshadowed, right? And everybody just wants to hear the Friends theme song, right? So yeah,
that's a shame though.
Yeah. But they're a good band, as you can see. You can like great writers. At the end, I loved, like, I was like, oh, I haven't heard a reversed guitar solo in so long. Like,
wow.
There's little things like that was really cool about this band. I always knew they were good writers. I enjoyed them at the time. I remember hearing a couple more songs, but like, man, Friends was just too powerful that it just like they became known as the Friends theme song.
That is some trivia I did not know. So they all encompassed by their one-hit wonder. That's sort of tragic in a way.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, you know what, dude? Think about it. Like, they're like, that show has been syndicated now 20-something years in every country. It's always on somewhere.
Yeah, so it's not too much of a tragedy.
yeah, they're making royalties on that one. Like every time that thing plays, probably gets licensed. You get a nice check.
No doubt.
Well, thank you for that, Game X Simmons. That was a good one. HW Transgender Ministries has suggested Beanie and Martini, the song Happiness. What do you think it is?
This was more to me like a more straightforward sort of DJ mix. I mean, it was nothing special, honestly. Like I could just sort of hear it playing in a club again. But it didn't really have any elements that really stood out to me. I felt like, it's a good mix. It's sort of background music, but it's not something I would really put on to focus on, if that makes sense. I would more have it on as an environment sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I pressed play, I was instantly transported to like house music and house remixes, and like there was so many remixes. I remember every song had like 8 or 9 remixes. So it brought me to that. Late 90s to early 2000s. The pitchy vocals kind of threw me off a bit, but it's normal with the whole remix thing, because back in the day, or like, sometimes the tuning, like auto tune, wasn't readily available and stuff like that. But I've gotten used to that because that's part of sort of the remix sound. It also reminded me of a duo that was big then, that did this kind of stuff, but also ventured out into other things, called Groove Armada. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it.
I've not heard of that. No. So that was like a EDM type of group? Yeah,
they were electronica, EDM. They did some housey stuff, or maybe there was housey remixes. That makes me remind me of that. But they had a couple of big hits at that time, So, and I think they're still doing music to this day, Groove Armada. But I'd never heard of this Beanie and Martini. I think it was new for me. But thanks again for your suggestion. So now we go to our friend here, who suggested Christmas time music. He suggested a lot of them. There's like all kinds, but I honestly, I went for the first one, which was Ye Banished Privateers, Ring the Bells.
Boy, if you guys want to see something entertaining, I suggest you run to your computer and type this in. This is what I was expecting for that album that was recommended by our guy GameX, or sorry, by Donald Fagen. This is sort of the music I was expecting, sort of some Viking Knight kind of stuff. These guys, it looks like they're pirates. They're sort of playing that privateer role. And I think it was very, very creative, man. I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about this. I mean, if you really have a vision like this and you're able to execute it, I say good on you.
Yeah, totally, man. Like I thought it was a great video. Well done. It was funny. Even at the end, like it looked like they were arguing or something was like went wrong, and it was an outtake that they threw in.
Yeah,
that was cool. Good take on a Christmas classic because it was slightly different, but it's like Jingle Bells basically. And shout out to Napalm Records, man, for like they're always on, like find some interesting, cool stuff in their genre and not afraid to take chances with pirates.
Seriously, I mean, they take the most chances I think of any label that I've worked with. So yeah, Napalm Records definitely an incredible thing they're doing for artists. But yeah, I give this a good rating. I think it was entertaining. It was non-pretentious. They had like the background scenes of showing sort of how it was made. So I think it was fun.
Yeah, and like I said, he suggested quite a few, and a lot of them are shanties and stuff. I'm not a shanty fan of stuff, but like, I mean, we for time we only reviewed one, but I mean, if you go onto our community tab and you'll see like all the other suggestions he made. Devin Giles, Deep Matter Hornets original mix. What'd you think of this?
Yes. Now this one, actually, I think I may have been sort of mixed up when I was talking about the house mixes, but this one was definitely a more so traditional house mix. However, though, I liked the way that it sounded and I like the structure. Like it doesn't really get annoying to me if it's put together well. The samples aren't too annoying. I can tolerate it, but again, I can't see myself really playing this at home. Like it just would feel weird to me to be just sitting there just listening to this. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, Joe.
Yeah, no, I mean, he suggested a few tracks. They were all good. I chose this one simply because it had the least views. I wanted to sort of bring an extra bit of attention to it. I didn't have much. I enjoyed it. Here are my notes. It's low key and extremely 90s inspired.
It's chill. Like this is more of like a laid back lounge type of vibe rather than like a big hype club. It gives me movie vibes. Like when a guy's coming in and like a detective looking for somebody in a cool New York, like underground place, this is what we'll be playing. So, I mean, I think it's cool, but again, like not my go-to personally.
Yeah. AUR is back with a remix of his own, Nalu. I hope I'm pronouncing Nalu. Stuck on You. AUR remix.
I never hit the Google Translate for the YouTube title, so I just had some text I couldn't see. This was cool. You know what? I think shout out to AUR, by the way. What are the biggest, when it comes to hunger? Yeah. And he has a big appetite for music.
Yeah.
He's got a unique sort of brand and the cool visualizers and everything. I think this was cool. This isn't the typical type of instruments you would hear in this type of song, I don't think, which sort of gave it like, it gave it, I'm sure it's probably programmed computer wise, but it gave it almost more of a legit feel, like a lo-fi feel. And some realness to it more so than full on EDM. Because for me, when I think EDM, I think more so computerized sounds. So again, I'm sure it's probably programmed, but it had a little bit of that real feeling when those real sounding instruments came in. But this was a good track. What do you think, Joe?
I put good job on the remix. AUR, as always, does a great job. I like the slap. Some of the sounds you'll probably say it sounds like a slap bass sample, right? That was programmed, so that changes it up. And of course, at 2 minutes, like a classic AUR breakdown with some dubsteppy kind of excited beats and editing, which is great. So like no issues with this. Great job, man.
Yeah, I think it was well done. And I mean, I'd like to see AUR on a festival stage here soon. I think they got the potential.
We'd have to fly him all the way from Pakistan. Yeah,
that's right. Get him on a plane, man.
Yeah, let's go. Thank you again, as always, AUR. Last one, Colin Olofsson, Anathema, I think. Unbelievable. Sorry. That's
Untouchable.
There's the Freudian slip. Untouchable line. Yeah. Sorry. So what'd you think of this?
Yes, you said it best, man. Okay, first of all, how have I never heard of this band? I've never even heard of this band. Yeah. And this is... I don't know whether I can call them a band or a project or a group or what, but whatever they have going on is incredible. This was a live version that we were recommended, and there were so many people on stage. There's people in the back with, orchestral instruments. There's people in the mix of those people with laptops. They're set up really like an orchestra, and then the front of the stage is sort of like a band. So, I mean, it's really, really interesting. And my main note for this was hypnotic, Joe. Like, I found it so hypnotic, so well executed. I'm a fan.
Yeah,
how about you?
I mean, they were. It's like a long song, right? 12 minutes, but it kept going the whole time. I love, like I said, it's rare I check out live versions. I did check out also the recorded version for this one too, but I mean, like, they're the same. This is a pro band, band that just, anyways, super good. Me too. I'm surprised. Like, again, like, I live under, how many rocks do I live under? Like, all these suggestions come in. I'm like, I never heard of this. But anyways, epic song, epic live performance is pretty much my notes. My pick of the week for sure. And again, another band I've never heard of. That's my notes.
Seriously. I mean, we appreciate you guys for sending this in, because as we say every episode, there's only so many bands we can really keep up with. When you find a band you really like, you want to listen to all their albums. So it's like there's only so many things we can keep in touch with. But you guys help us be in touch with some of these underground bands, some of the bigger bands we haven't heard of. So we really appreciate it. My pick of the week is probably going to have to be Die in the Disco. I really like the video. I'm a sucker for a cool animated video. I think that's been established through this segment. So maybe I'm biased, but I really like this, and the mix was very crisp as well.
Yeah, same here. Like, that would probably be my second choice as well.
Well, my second choice is Anathema. So there you go. We both have good picks. We appreciate you guys for sending in, and make sure to subscribe to SoundMojo on YouTube for the next post on the comms tab. Maybe we'll be giving you a shout out and checking out your listener suggestion. So now we're going to hop into the interview portion of today's episode. It's an honor to have Andrea von Kampen joining us on today's episode of the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast, talking about A Chance Encounter, the EP and film, which is dropped everywhere now. So make sure to go and check it out. Interesting stuff, Joe. It's cool not only to hear somebody, like we mentioned off the top, expanding their wings from singer-songwriter to sort of film actor and sort of writer and soundtrack maker, but also, stepping out of the box in terms of traveling the world. I mean, Andrea, born and raised in Nebraska, spending a month in Italy for this project, expanding her horizons. I think it's a really big, important step for an artist to take.
Yeah, totally. And as you'll see, like, this is pretty much what she does for a living, which is great. Congrats, because she's doing music for a living, man. That's like she's living the dream.
100%. So shout out to Andrea, and we really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Indie artists, get your notepads out, because this is where you're going to get a lot of good tips and tricks on the business, and we'll catch you guys right afterwards. Andrea von Kampen, welcome to the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
100%. Thank you for joining us, calling in from Nebraska today. How's it going over there in Nebraska?
It's great. It's been a great day. It's really nice outside. I can't complain. I've been on the road for 2 weeks, and I just got home a couple days ago, heading back out on the road in a couple days. So it's been nice to kind of be at home for a little while.
Very cool. So what's the touring schedule like for you? Do you do a lot of days in a row? Do you do like a day on, a day off when you're on the road?
Yeah, it kind of depends. It can be different every time. Usually, it's like 2 to 3 days on, 1 day off, and you do that for, 2 weeks or so, and then you're home. So that's kind of been what it's been like right now, but it can be all over the place. Sometimes I'll play like a one-off festival across the country and just fly out and play it and then fly back home.
Okay.
I always wondered, like, how do you deal with like a job and paying bills and that kind of stuff, when it comes to like going for a quick run and then you're back, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, this is my full-time job, so I don't have anything to get back home for, other than like emails and writing music. So this works well for me. But yeah, it would be really hard to balance both.
Were you ever in a situation where you had to do that, maybe before you were full-time?
Yeah, well, when I graduated college, I found a teaching job that was part-time, and I convinced them to let me teach the music. I was teaching K-5 music, and I convinced them to let me teach or Tuesday through Thursday so that I could be on the road Sunday through Monday. And I did that for 2 years and that worked really well. I toured all summer long. And then eventually I didn't really need that job anymore. So it was a really easy transition into full-time music.
Nice. That's the dream. That's what everybody dreams about, right?
Totally.
No, 100%. So in terms of the new project, of course, A Chance Encounter, which is not only an EP, but also an independent film. I mean, this is a huge project. Maybe tell us about sort of how you got involved with this.
Totally. Yeah. So when I was living in Nebraska, I had heard of a filmmaker named Alexander Jeffrey. And I think he had been at the college the time that my brother was at the college. He went to the film school at UNL. And he was sort of back in town shooting a friend's music video. And I knew that I wanted to get connected with him. So I texted my friend and I was like, do you need any help on this music video? Like acting, whatever, behind the scenes. And he was like, yeah, well, actually, we are looking for actors. So I volunteered to do this music video. That's how I met Alex, and we really hit it off. And then Alex and I made quite a few music videos together. And it was when we were in Portland shooting a music video that he had brought Paul Peterson along and kind of pitched the idea to me of doing a film. And it was like, it'll be a huge part of it will be the music. So would you want to write the music? Would you want to play the music? And then the acting will sort of, follow. So that was when he pitched it. And then it wasn't probably a year or two until we were actually shooting it. So there was a lot of prep time to I think he had a lot of things to do on the script to kind of clean it up. And I was writing while we were doing that. And yeah, it just sort of came together that way.
Had you acted before?
Not in any films. No, I mean that music video.
Right.
But, I had done some musicals in high school and college, but other than that, no, I had never acted. I'd never done a film before.
And how does that feel? Because when I've tried it, it just feels so awkward. It feels so like weird.
Totally. I because I perform a lot and I'd done a lot of music videos, there was a certain level of comfort, but it was definitely scary. I mean, I was definitely stepping out of my comfort zone to do it.
100%. I mean, was it something that you instantly knew that you could tackle, or was it something that you had to think about a little bit before accepting it?
I definitely thought a little bit about it. I'm very ambitious, so I usually make decisions before thinking about them, which is not like a good habit to have.
I can relate to that as well.
Yes, and so I sort of agreed and then was like, oh my God, what did I just sign up for?
Can I do this?
So it was more like that time between agreeing and shooting that there was just a lot of like, wow, I don't know why I agreed to do this.
I know. If there's too much time, then you have too much time to think about it, right? Like, me too. Like, I know if I have too much time to think about something, I'll probably opt out or not do it. But if I say yes before, then I'm sort of kind of trapped, and which is a good thing. That kind of pushes you,
Yeah, it was very much like that.
So what was the prep work like? I mean, what was the first things that you did to sort of immerse yourself in that? Was it acting lessons or was it just like online stuff?
No. Well, the first thing I did was write the whole soundtrack. And so that sort of helped me get into the character of this character. I read the script a lot of times through, and I had written to things that already existed before. Like I had written a soundtrack for a Romeo and Juliet production, and that like really helped me learn Romeo and Juliet. And so that's sort of the approach I took. And so that helped me get into the character. And then, I'm a big film fan, so I've watched like a ton of indie films, and I sort of knew like the tone that Alex wanted to strike. And, I didn't really take acting classes or do any of those things. I wanted it to feel really natural, and I didn't feel like I had enough time to like fully understand the craft of acting. Like I wasn't going to go to school and, do 4 years of acting. Yeah. And so it was sort of like, I'm going to really work on this from the music perspective and then sort of see what it's like organically. And that's really sort of the approach that we took.
How many songs did you end up writing for the film?
I think there's going to be 7 that come out. I wrote a few more than that, but we kind of whittled it down based on the script.
Nice.
Okay. So, I mean, in terms of the timeline for the soundtrack, was there like a big deadline, so to speak, for that? Or was it just like you're writing the soundtrack, we're putting the script together and it's just going to happen, when it happens?
Yeah, there wasn't a massive deadline, and I hadn't signed to a label yet. So it was sort of like there was nobody pressuring me to get this done. I knew the songs that needed to be done before we shot because of the script. And then there were some things that needed to be written retroactively. So the final number I wrote when I was back home, because that was supposed to be based on the whole experience there. So
Okay.
that was sort of like the roadmap for that, but it didn't feel like rushed or like there was a deadline attached to it.
I remember wild and sweet melodies in April. Hear those lips that kiss so sweet.
What was it like being in Sicily and filming this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Sicily is so beautiful and the weather was incredible. I mean, like logistically, there were a lot of tourists, which was a little difficult to work around. You know, you're acting for the first time and you're acting in front of a bunch of strangers who are sort of like semi-watching you act and you're trying to make it seem natural.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that, seeing behind the scenes videos. It's like you got a big crowd in some places, right?
Yeah. And we were sort of told that tourist season would be ending by October, and especially by November 1st, everybody should be gone. But that was not the case at all. I mean, there were thousands of people there every day. So some scenes had to be shot like really early in the morning to sort of capture that emptiness. And then we just sort of had to be flexible. So, I mean, it was amazing to be there, but we were absolutely working very hard. So it was sort of like a nice backdrop to an incredible amount of work.
How long was it, the shooting process?
I think I shot for 21 days. I think they might have had a few more days, but it was really quick.
Okay, and it was like every day you were shooting?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And you said that you were eating pasta, for 21 days straight, right? So I mean, you're getting up at 5 a.m. eating pasta. That must have been a bit of a challenge as well.
I mean, from experience, knowing that's different. That's real pasta, right?
Yeah, it's actually filling.
It was sort of like a weird thing, because at first you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Right.
Like 10 days in, you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. You know, we're so spoiled. Like in America, you know, you have access to any sort of cuisine you want ever. And I didn't realize, sorry, my dog's like going crazy with her bone. I didn't realize that Sicily had so much of, like, it was just Italian, but I sort of like naively thought, oh, they'll have a little bit of everything, like everywhere else I've been. Not the case. So yeah.
Well, if you want to dive deep into the culture, that's the best way to do it. But yeah, it's true, because if you're looking for like a hamburger or just like a sandwich or something, it's different.
Yeah, even just like curry or Thai food or Mexican.
Oh yeah.
You know, like we couldn't even find cilantro at the grocery store. Like it was crazy. I've never experienced that before.
If you would have asked, somebody would have said it's because you don't need it.
No, absolutely.
That's the thing. That's not in their cooking vernacular, I don't think. So, I mean, looking back at the whole experience, would you say it was more challenging to make the music for this project or to do the acting and things along the actual filming for the movie?
Yeah, it was very easy to do the music, and it was very challenging to do the acting. I've made a lot of records, and so I felt very confident in writing and recording the album. But yeah, the acting part was totally new for me. So definitely that was tougher.
Looking forward, do you want to do more acting now after this? Or is it something that now that you've done a bit, you're like, oh, okay, I've experienced that. We're back to the music.
Yeah, I mean, I totally would do more acting. And I think there's a lot of projects where music and acting are kind of fused together. And so I would sort of love to explore that. I'd also love to write for more films. So I think this was a good first step in that direction. And I'm open to a lot of different opportunities.
How about engineering the project? How long have you actually been sort of producing and engineering?
Well, I work with an audio engineer, so he kind of recorded that whole thing. And then my brother arranges for me. So the three of us work pretty closely together on everything. So that was a very natural workflow as well, because we had actually, I think we had just made a record together. So that's a very sort of like well-oiled machine that has been working for a long time.
How long has your brother been involved? And I mean, is he mostly on the production side, or what exactly does he do other than that?
Yeah, so my brother is a composer. So he teaches at the college, and he's maybe 7 years older than me, 6 or 7 8-ish years older than me. That's terrible. I gotta learn that. And anyways, so he's always been a big influence for me musically. From the very first thing I wrote, he arranged. He plays the piano, and so he helps produce, arrange, and plays on the record. So he's always had a really big influence on the music from the start.
So going back, like what age did you start? What did you start with? Like what got you going into music? Your brother, I'm assuming, part of that?
Yeah, well, my dad's also a musician. He teaches choir. He's a college professor and has a choir. So I don't know. And so he and my mom both are musicians. And then my 2 older brothers are musicians. And my sister played trumpet. And so it's just a very musical family. It was
totally.
Like a lot of people have talked to me about how their parents would say, like, don't do music. There's not a job in it. And it was the exact opposite in my family. It was like the only thing you're good at is music. So just like, do music.
You got to go in the family business of music rather than like doctor,
Exactly. And so from a very young age, I knew I wanted to do music. And it was probably, I picked up a guitar maybe around like 10 or 11, then kind of stopped playing for a while and then started playing back up in high school. By the end of high school, early college, I sort of knew like, it's great to be able to play other people's songs, but if I want a career in this, I have to learn to write my own songs. And so I think maybe it was freshman or sophomore year of college that I like set out to write a song. And I wrote this song called Train Song, and I sent it to my brother David, and he was like, yeah, this is great. Like, keep writing. And that song ended up doing like really well on Spotify, which was like cool, but also a little daunting. Like the first one I've ever written did well.
Like, now where do I go? Right.
Yeah. And so then it was sort of like, well, that's awesome, but that's just one song. And so I started writing a bunch more, making more albums. I went to a school for a while that was kind of meant to train you to be a songwriter. It was called Belmont University in Nashville. And so I just slowly worked on it, and things kind of fell into place with time and work.
I can't go softly, I won't go gently, I'll choose the water every day.
So in terms of the classic composition, would you say that you lean more so towards those influences, or do you lean more so towards just the freestyle sort of leaning towards like the feeling of the music?
Yeah, I mean, I would say both. I got a degree in music, so I definitely had to study a lot of the more classical side of things, and I appreciate that and really like listening to that kind of music. But also, I sort of think folk music at its heart is storytelling. And so when I approach a song with that, it's sort of like the first thing is to tell a good story. And I think all the training and, different influences should inform the song to be good as well. But that's not the goal from the get-go.
No, 100%. So how about in terms of putting this record together? You said that you had your engineer that you work with. Where exactly do you guys record? And is there a specific studio that you guys stick to?
Yeah, so for a long time, we were working in a studio called Silver Street, which is in a small town between Omaha and Lincoln in Nebraska. Really cute town on the river. Our friend set up a studio there. So that's where we worked for a really long time. That's actually not open anymore, but that's where we recorded A Chance Encounter.
Okay, so it shut down, I would assume, due to the pandemic, or just random reasons?
Yeah, the guy who owned it ended up selling it. So my engineer and I are sort of looking at different options for the next record. But we recorded my record, That Spell, out there, and A Chance Encounter, and quite a few Christmas songs, EPs, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So in terms of home recording, is that something that you've ever been interested in, or is that just do you just prefer to do it out at a studio to sort of get out there?
Yeah, I've just always worked at studios. I think a big part is that I live in the Midwest, so the prices are not as, outrageous as if I lived in a major city. But also I really focus on the craft of songwriting, singing, and I feel really good about what I can bring there. And I'd rather just hone those crafts than also learn how to be an engineer. It's a completely different job. So I'm always happy to sort of go to the pros and let them bring their expertise to the project.
You mentioned your first song did really well. Your first thing you worked on. Besides that, have you had any challenges, or what challenges do you face in terms of being in? Oh, you're not indie anymore, right? Or you're signed now?
Yeah, I am on a label. The writing has always come pretty easy, and I really enjoy the creative process. The stuff that's been the hardest is kind of everything else. Like
Okay.
the industry,
The business side.
and and just building a fan base, and it's a really difficult time right now. Obviously, the music industry is in a ton of flux. Things are changing constantly. And I think kind of doing the business side is the part that is not easy. But in this day and age, you don't really get to just, write music. You kind of have to commit to doing the other side as well if you want it to be a full-time job.
When you say business side or like music industry side, like what does that mean to you? Like, is that social media? Is that publishing? Is that licensing? All those different aspects?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of everything that's not making the art. Like social media is a huge part of building a fan base, and it's constantly changing and something that you have to continually put time and energy into. I mean, that's a huge part of it. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything on the business side.
So in terms of that, like, would you say that it's been more effective for you to have different Spotify placements or playlists, or would you say the TikTok or the social game has been bigger? Like, where do you find the most synergy is for you and your audience on a social standpoint?
Yeah, I think the streaming has always been a great asset. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music as well, YouTube, all of those places have been incredibly helpful. Instagram's a big one for me. For a while, I was doing TikTok pretty regularly and growing a fan base, and it was great. And then I got hacked. So just a PSA to everybody out there, do the two-step verification.
Yes, on all apps.
Yeah, exactly. And so coming back from getting hacked has definitely been hard algorithmically. I think the algorithms have really shifted. I mean, because I think so many people were reporting my account. Thank you. But now we're sort of back after that. But yeah, I mean, I think all the social media accounts have their different ways of helping out, but it's just really being consistent and also being willing to evolve based on how these social media sites evolve.
No, 100%. Do you feel like apps are coming in and out of style like more quickly nowadays? Because it almost feels like a year and a half ago, TikTok was the king of all media, so to speak. And now it almost seems like we're getting used to it, and we may be ready for the next thing. I mean, do you feel like things are going at a faster pace now as an artist?
Totally. It feels like the Wild West, and it feels like such an uphill battle. And it's like, it's very tempting to just want to throw the towel in and be like, whatever. I don't really care enough. I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to play these algorithms. Like, things are shifting so quickly. I can't even keep up. But then on the other side of it, it's like, but this is the way it is.
Right. And you have the passion behind it as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to grow and you want people to hear your music, these are incredible tools. But it is hard to not feel sort of like controlled by them and stressed out by them. It's such a balance. And I think I think this is something that the majority of artists struggle with.
I was watching someone like a YouTuber commenting about that TikTok and short form, and the fact that it used to be an album and then it went to singles, and now it's going to 5 to 6 second clips.
Right.
So it's like it makes you
What's
think
next?
that I don't need a verse or a chorus. Just let me write something super catchy, 5 seconds long. So it's sad, because especially I'm sorry that you got hacked and stuff, because all that work that goes into that, and you finally feel you got some momentum, and then somebody just pulls the rug.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's strange, because it does feel like the short form content is king, and how can it get any shorter than it is? Yeah. And I think a great anecdote to that is playing shows, and you get up for an hour in front of people, and they listen and they're excited, and you have real human conversations with them, and you realize people do still want to listen to music in a full form. I don't fully understand what's going on in the digital side. And, obviously I'll do my best to play along, but I think you really see in person and in real life that humans still want, something that feels real.
100%. Speaking of that, how do you feel about, we like to ask guests sometimes about the possibility of artificial intelligence taking over in the music space. There's been, rumors of potentially full albums being produced by AI. I mean, what's your first reaction to something like that? Because obviously, that's definitely moving away from the human element.
Absolutely. I actually just read a book about AI, and I've been more than ever trying to be incredibly kind to Alexa.
Right.
I am terrified.
We better. I'm scared.
But I mean, when it comes to, AI making albums, like, I think it's cool. I think it's really different than the albums I make. And I think there's, a space for it. And, when I think about what I listen to, it ranges from, so many different ways of creating art. And, it might not seem super artistic or, authentic to me, but, people might like it. And I think there's room for everyone here and every fake.
Fake guru.
That's true too.
Sorry, fake artist.
So some people, everybody has their own approach to it. So, I mean, in terms of the EP, what are you hoping that people take away from the whole story and the whole experience? Obviously you guys put a lot into it. Maybe tell us what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, I hope people enjoy the film. I hope that they're moved by it. I hope that the music sort of, is something that they want to keep listening to, something that they want to keep going back to. I think when I see films that I really like and I feel like the music's been paired really well, it sort of elevates the music in a more meaningful way than if you just sat down with a record, and listened to it for the first time. So I feel like it's a cool way to get the music in front of people. And that's really what I hope, hope happens with this film. Where's
the film going to be distributed? Where can people find the film once it comes out?
I know it's being distributed through Samuel Goldwyn. I'm not exactly sure. I know it's going to be able to be purchased, but I'm not sure on which platforms yet. It will be playing in 6 theaters across the U.S. So, and that information should be able to be found on the Samuel Goldwyn website. So.
Very cool. Well, obviously here at WatchMojo, we're well known for our top 10 lists, and this episode here is going to be no exception. So this list that we pulled was top 10 actors who are unexpectedly good singers. And we wanted to pull this up. Now, before we reveal the top 3, is there any actor who you are fond of who you think is underrated as a vocalist?
Interesting. I'm not sure. I think I know actors who I think are great vocalists, and I wouldn't say that they're underrated. Like Johnny Flynn comes to mind. Like, he is such a good actor and I love his music as well. I wouldn't say he's underrated in either category, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can think of anybody off the top of my head who's like an underrated singer.
Okay, Joe, how about you? Do you have any?
Well, I'm going to cheat because I know that, let's say, Kevin Bacon is a great actor, and also he does what, country kind of rock, maybe stuff like that.
Yep, something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay,
that's pretty much what I know. Yeah.
Well, the top 3 on this list here is number 3 is Colin Farrell. So that is one that I actually wasn't aware of.
Interesting.
Me too.
Yeah. Number 2, Jeremy Renner. So that's new to me as well. Yeah, definitely. That just messed my mind up, even picturing that. And number 1, any guesses for number 1? It's so hard.
I have no idea. Maybe Scarlett Johansson or something.
No, I think this person has actually starred alongside Scarlett Johansson. Number 1, say, yeah. Ryan Gosling.
Oh, okay.
Apparently can handle the vocals quite well. So definitely not something that I expected. But yeah, we appreciate WatchMojo pulling that list.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, I was curious, what would be an artist you'd love to either tour with, go on tour with, or support in a tour? Who would that be for you? Oh man,
there's so many. I'm a huge fan of Sufjan Stevens. I'd love to tour with him. I saw that Gregory Alan Isakov just released a North American tour he's doing in the winter. I would love to tour with him. He's amazing. Yeah, there's so many though. So many. Fleet Foxes, they're great.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
Very cool. And is there any dream venue you'd want to be at? I mean, a lot of people say the Garden, Red Rocks.
Oh yeah. Red Rocks would be beautiful. I love seeing shows there. We'll keep it to Red Rocks.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, perfect. Well, listen, we really appreciate your time, Andrea, and the brand new project, A Chance Encounter. The EP is going to be out everywhere on October 21st. So if it's past that date, make sure to go check down below at the links and check out the project. And we really appreciate your time once again.
Cool. Thank you all.
Awesome. Take care. Huge shout out to Andrea von Kampen for joining us on this brand new episode of the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast. Very cool to hear her whole story, Joe. And I like the fact that she talked about the different challenges between music and film. She didn't really pinpoint one as necessarily more challenging, but more so illustrating the nuanced challenges between both, which I think is like a more so realistic view. Like everything has its own challenges and nothing's really a cakewalk at the end of the day, especially when you're creating.
Yeah, well, she did sort of like say is like music obviously comes naturally to her because that's her main thing. So I don't think she had any issues with that. But the acting, like I know myself, like I mentioned in the interview, it's like it feels so awkward when you're trying to act like something or act like someone else or something. And yeah, and then imagine like you're in Italy, right? It's tourist season. So like there's never a quiet time. And so you basically have a crowd while you're trying to, I don't know, I would be freaked out about that whole thing,
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to sort of zone out the outside. And, but again, I can't see how that wouldn't help her artistry as a musician. I see it as very transferable. And every time we interview somebody who does sort of either acting or modeling on the side of music, there are, very transferable skills when you compare to them, what you can take away from it. So yeah, shout out to Andrea von Kampen. We're really glad to have had her on the show. And make sure to go check out A Chance Encounter. The EP and the film is going to be available everywhere, wherever you get your streaming. So definitely make sure to go and check it out. And Joe, I think that about does it for today's episode of Inner Sleeve.
Yeah, man, that was a great one. Thanks everyone for all the suggestions. As always, you're always teaching us new stuff, man. It's crazy. I always thought I knew music, but like, wow,
yeah. I thought we were the music guys.
Yeah, exactly, right. But that's like, we're just kidding and stuff. It's just there's not enough hours, right, in the day to listen to everything and know everything. And so many bands and movies too. Like this, I'm guilty of like, I gotta watch that movie, and then like 10 years passes, I still didn't watch that movie. Like I still haven't listened to that band, and I still haven't checked out that song. Yeah, so it's crazy, but we always enjoy your suggestions because like I said, it always opens up our eyes and like the whole community vibe of the show and the channel. I've noticed a big push ever since we started doing this segment. And a lot more engagement. So that's definitely what we want. So definitely, share us everywhere you can if you think it will bring value to, anybody who needs information or, some of the artists we interview. I think we got some gold here a lot of time,
100%. Thank you guys for all of the support. We just passed 30,000 subscribers. So again, thank you guys so much for the continued support for the show and the channel. Make sure to go hit that subscribe button as well on YouTube and stay up to date with us. As we said, the community tab is popping with questions, polls all the time. Make sure to make your voice heard and come weigh in, and you may hear your username shared on the show. You never know. We may be shouting you out next. Of course, follow us on social media as well at SoundMojo. We're on all platforms where you can get your socials and news, and of course on all audio platforms for podcasts as well, not just YouTube. So if you listen to podcasts, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify to check out SoundMojo. Hit that subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating as well. We would love to see what you guys think of the show. Thanks so much for tuning into this brand new episode of the Inner Sleeve Music Podcast. We'll catch you guys next week.